So I'm back again, riding the Weaver Wave, and I'm just going to give you a short little introduction to part 3 of our medical journey with God. Caitlin's not really going to get any new diagnosis, but she's going to get an amazing surprise. She's going to get a wonderful gift, and she's going to start some new treatments that may or may not help her. I don't know. And we're going to get a blessing from our oldest son and his wife. And it's going to be amazing. So sorry about that. The dogs were scratching at the door, but just to let you know, this is what we're going to talk about for part 3. Hope you can join us. Bye. Okay, everyone, so I'm back. This is going to be part 3 of Riding the Weaver Wave. Just wanted to kind of give you a little background. The first couple of diagnoses that we've got already, when we first got diagnosed, we have the von Willebrand bleeding disorder. That's where her blood doesn't clot the way it needs to. She's missing the glue. The second diagnosis we got was the factor V Leiden. That's where she throws blood clots at any given time. Really don't know a whole lot about that. I haven't done a lot of research into it. She's only had a couple of superficial blood clots, so we haven't had to deal with anything serious yet. The third diagnosis we got was the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or the joint hypermobility, where I explained to you, how the joints become really loose and they can dislocate. And at the end of part 2, we started talking about her new diagnosis after she injured her foot jumping off the balance beam in the cheerleading, which eventually she will no longer be able to cheer. We get sent to a rheumatologist after orthopedic and orthopedic and orthopedic. And the rheumatologist diagnoses her with something called undifferentiated spondyloarthritis, which is a big word, which basically means she has an autoimmune disease that is attacking her, I guess you would say in simple terms, her spine, her hip, her knees, and her feet. And we went to a phenomenal rheumatologist, and he was absolutely incredible, knew right away what was going on with her. Started her on a low-dose chemotherapy treatment. We did that for 2 weeks and no improvement. And I'll be showing you pictures of how swollen her feet were and the infusions that she goes through. So he immediately, after 2 weeks of trying the methotrexate, and she's still complaining, still not able to walk on the foot, still having the rashes and the fever, he said, I think it's time that we start looking at a biologic. And the one that we chose for our daughter was Remicade. There are tons of biologics out there on the market, but this is the one that usually does very well with ankylosing spondyloarthritis, which they thought Caitlin had, or at least at the time, that's what they diagnosed her with. So, and again, you'll see a picture here soon of her doing her very first infusion. It's an outpatient infusion. It took about 6 hours the first time. They were able to use her port, so we didn't have to do any IVs or anything like that. But it's scary, it's putting another chemical into your child's body, and you have to use pre-medications, Benadryl, Tylenol, IV fluids, Salumedrol, all this stuff, just so you don't have a reaction from this medication that's supposed to calm down your arthritis. Well, Caitlin started doing that, and we would go once every 4 weeks, and she was on a very low dose in the beginning. And of course, as always, nothing's typical with Caitlin. Every time we would go for our checkup, which would be about every 4 to 6 months, the arthritis was still flaring. She was still having issues, still complaining, and we'd have to keep ramping up the methotrexate. In the meantime, we've now got our hematologist talking to us about this program called Magic Moments. And, you know, for me as a mom, I always thought Magic Moments and Give Kids the World and things like that are for kids that have cancer, you know, that are terminal. I mean, our kids have a chronic, lifelong illness. They'll never go away. They may go into remission if we're really, really lucky, but they'll never go away. So I just didn't even think that was something that we could do for her. But Caitlin had been in and out of the hospital. We'd already had 3 ear surgeries by now. She's had 3 different ports. You know, every time we'd put a port in, we'd last maybe 8 months to a year, and she'd have to have another port placed, whether there was a bleed or it stopped working or there was a clog in the central line, whatever the case may be. So all this child's done since she started kindergarten was enduring hospitals and hospital trips. And excuse me, but I'm going to look at my notes here because I have such a long timeline here. In July of 2014, we were suggested to go to Vanderbilt to see one of the world-renowned hematologists there, because once again, her bleeding disorder just did not act like a typical type 1 von Willebrand. She was requiring more and more factor and more hospitalizations for bleeds that we didn't understand. And Vanderbilt ended up typing her von Willebrands as a type they've never seen before. They said, this is brand new to us and we're not really sure what we're going to do, but we're going to get with your hematologist back at Birmingham and we're going to come up with a treatment plan that works for Caitlin, even though her labs don't make any sense to any of us. And they even sent her blood to the Blood Center of Wisconsin and still couldn't get a good answer. This time we had the greatest joy in our lives. Our first granddaughter was born, Chloe, and she is precious. She is the light of our lives, and it couldn't have come at a better time. We'll be showing you a picture in a minute of Chloe, just a gorgeous girl, baby girl. And we started looking into the possibility of doing a Magic Moments application. We submitted it, and honestly, within 3 weeks, we were notified by Magic Moments that Caitlin was chosen for a trip. And basically, the kids get to choose where they want to go. They said Caitlin was chosen because all of her health issues are detrimental to her everyday life. It's causing her to no longer be able to cheerlead. It's causing her to miss a lot of school. She's always in and out of the hospital. And those are the type of kids that they want to be able to give a wish to. So giving a shout out to all the people in the world that have ever donated to any organization that grants wishes to children, because they do mean a lot. They make a big difference in these kids' lives. And Caitlin chose Disneyland, or Disney World, in Orlando, Florida. And we were able to go there in July. And we had the most magical time. I mean, Give Kids the World treated Caitlin like a princess, treated Jacob like a prince, ice cream 24 hours a day, SeaWorld, Disney World, and I'll share a couple of those pictures with you. But it still wasn't the best for Caitlin because she was still in a wheelchair. She still either had a cast or a brace on, and, you know, she made the best of it. She had a great time. Caitlin never, ever lets anybody know that something's wrong with her until she's at her absolute breaking point. But I could tell there was still something not right. And that's when we ended up coming home and started looking into getting Caitlin a puppy. This is where Bella gets introduced, and I'll show you a picture of her. She's an adorable Yorkie poo, and she was the light of Caitlin's world. She immediately bonded with Caitlin. She knew exactly when Caitlin wasn't feeling well. She could tell you before Caitlin started feeling bad, and Bella was just a gift from God. We started seeing a rheumatologist early August and literally started on the methotrexate. We're doing the Remicade, you know, now it's December and things are just not getting any better. We're now into January of the following year, 2015, and we're ramping up Remicade even more. So now we're getting a higher dose every 4 weeks and still not getting anywhere, still not getting the results that the rheumatologist is wanting. And That's what led us into looking into a program at the National Institute of Health. And yes, it's a long drive. Caitlin can't fly because of the Factor V Leiden and all the other issues she has. And it's in Maryland. So it was going to be a very big decision if we decided to go for it. But we submitted all her documents. It took months to get all her medical records from all of her different specialists. And we actually got accepted into a research study with Dr. Colbert for ankylosing spondylitis kids. And it was an amazing trip. The doctors were incredible, but once again, Caitlin stumped them. Caitlin was a puzzle to them. She was some type of medical mystery that they truly hadn't seen. They did their skin biopsy on her and it came back inconclusive. The skin did not do what it was supposed to and left a scar on her arm, which is still there today, 8 years later, sorry. They did tons of blood work, they did genetic testing, you name it, they did it. And they came up with all kinds of unknown variants, but things they had never seen before. So there was no new diagnosis, there was just all the old diagnosis, and we need to keep looking into this. It could take years, they told us, before we figure this out. In the meantime, we've got Jacob, who is my fun-loving, goofy child, loves to play basketball, loves to play soccer, trying to juggle his schedule, his after-school curricular activities, and poor Caitlin missing more school than we can count. But, you know, like I told you, with every video that we've talked about, this is riding the Weaver wave. Scott works all the time at Leave It to Weaver Upholstery. I'm working at First Baptist Church of Alabaster doing my community ministries, and we're both teaming up, you know, with Joseph still at home, and things are just, you know, still being crazy, still not adding up, still not making sense, and we know there's something else. We're not going to stop looking for what's going on with our daughter until we get an answer or somebody tells us, I'm sorry, there is no answer. You know, we've still got the feet swelling, we've still got the inflammation going on, we've still got the blood counts being off, we've still got the bleeds out of nowhere, we've still got the poor healing, and I know we've done a lot of research on Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and a lot of this can be explained by that. But there was still something that was going on with Caitlin's body that we just couldn't put our fingers on. And in my next video, I will tell you more about that. But for right now, like I said, I just kind of wanted to share a little bit more about where we are with Caitlin. We're in now the middle of 2015. We enjoyed our Magic Moments trip. We've been to the NIH. Actually, we go to the NIH in January of 2015. So now we're trying to figure out, where do we go from here? What do we do to give our child as normal as of a life as she can have with the best quality? We don't want her always in a wheelchair. We don't want her always in pain. We don't want to see her suffering in and out of the hospital. But what can you do? I mean, if you've been to Vanderbilt and you've been to the NIH and you've had your blood sent off to the Blood Center of Wisconsin and you've got all the good doctors here at Children's in Birmingham and everybody's saying your child is a puzzle. They used to use the word enigma, and I basically told them they needed to stop saying that because I couldn't stand that title for her. But she's a blessing from God, and God knew what he was doing when he created her, and God knew what he was doing when he gave her to Scott and I. And we will take the very best care of her, and we will not stop fighting for her until we don't have a breath left in ourselves. So just keep on doing what you're doing. If you have a complex medical child, don't give up. Don't take no for an answer, and keep searching, because when we do this next video, you'll find out we kept searching and we find more things. So I appreciate everyone that's out there watching this video. I hope it's not too long. As always, like it if you like it. Comment down below. Let me know what you want to know, don't want to know. Maybe you have a question about your own child. And if you hadn't hit that big red subscribe button, please do. That just helps me get the word out to more people. So thanks again. I'll see you.